We keep things rolling here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I'm joined with the one, the only, the marvelous one, Dan Marver. Marvelous. How you doing, buddy?
Doing fine. And yourself?
I am doing great, buddy, and it is one of our favorite times of the summertime as we are getting ever so closely to the Olympic Games in Paris, and we are spotlighting some of the big stories heading into the Summer Classic we see every 4 years. And one of the big stories is, of course, this version of the Dream Team, this version of what the United States men's basketball team is going to look like. And some news has broken. Kawhi Leonard, NBA champion, finals MVP, will not be on the Olympic roster. It will be Derek White from the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. And that has some people wondering why Jaylen Brown of the same team was not brought on into this team. So, Marver, a general question I think a lot of people have. What did you think about this roster move? Would you have had Jaylen Brown over Derek White, or would you have gone the way Team USA did?
Well, I think, Kawhi Leonard's out with knee inflammation. I mean, maybe it's a question of availability. I don't know if Brown, maybe Brown's on a round the world cruise or something, for all we know. But I think, maybe he was asked, at one point. So it looks like it would have been a good choice, a better choice. But this is a fine choice, too. I mean, again, we were talking about the women's team and their choices. So sometimes you can always question things. So, this is worth questioning. But I think they got enough talent that it won't make any difference.
This is kind of where it parlays into is more the conversation between Team USA versus Team Canada. That's what this Olympics is going to come down to. From what you've seen from the exhibitions, from the placements, from the everything that's going on right now as we get ready for the qualifications to actually the big time games themselves that matter. How much competition do you think the world game is going to bring to the United States? We know that it's caught up. Whether or not it's more dominant is a different conversation, but I think this year it's much more of a North American game, and that's going to be where it's decided between the Canadians and the Americans.
Well, they did play on Wednesday in an exhibition game, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, 86-72, winners United States, before a record crowd, by the way, in Las Vegas, over 20,000, including Barack Obama, among others. But, and then, of course, they had the exhibition game against the select team on Monday, which ended up being a close game, but the media wasn't allowed in there except for about 2 minutes, which I'll explain a bit too, because the number one projected draft choice for 2025, Cooper Flagg, was on the select team, and the media were let in very briefly, and they did see a really flash of his talent. He's been a Duke, and he blocked the shot by Adebayo, he stole the ball, he put in a three-pointer, and it was a little bit extreme, but Flagg's supposed to be said as a combination of Bird and Magic, which would be kind of unbelievable. But that was the select team game on. It was a 1 point game on Monday, and then it was a 14-point game between the projected 1 and 2 teams. And then on it goes. They play Australia next, and the first game over in Paris is against Serbia, which has historically been pretty good. But like you say, the Europeans may not be up to the task this year, so we'll see what happens. But it's quite a roster. I mean, you got all the greats, Curry and Magic. I mean, Curry and James.
Nice, there you go.
Magic makes a little too old for that. Curry and James. It was a little Biden misstep there. By Vice President Trump. But so they have all the talent, obviously, from the NBA that they could possibly muster. But they only have one basketball. So we'll see what happens, but I think they should be able to prevail, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. And you and I will talk about our stroke game and the next segment of the Sports Cubicle. See who has who has a better card in our golf game. But just for the odds, USA obviously the standing favorites. Canada second, France, Serbia, Greece, Germany, Australia, Spain, Brazil, Puerto Rico, South Sudan, and Japan to round out what the odds are to win the gold medal in the Olympics for the men's Olympic basketball team. And like you said, there's just so much talent, and there's so much talent with the select team, and there's so many guys that are going to be in the 2025 draft that are eventually going to be on the Olympic team that are going to be winning gold medals as well. I think this goes to show on both the men and women's side how healthy the game of basketball is, because the NBA has shown how much talent it is worldwide, and I think we're going to see some good games internationally from some of these countries, and there's going to be players that you just don't recognize but that are awesome all-stars in the league that are playing for all these different countries, and it's going to make for good basketball. But the expectation is both the men and women come home with gold medals. And what do you think about what's going on the women's side of the Olympic basketball United States representation?
Well, there were some of the possibilities left out, like Caitlin from that team, but again, a very solid team. They should be pretty solid in that tournament. But I was just going to go back to them and look at the bench for the men. Embiid, Davis, Booker, Durant. I mean, those are probably the reserves. I mean, seriously. Back to the women's side. I mean, in that bracket, you may get a little bit of more competition from the Europeans than the men, but I think that we get enough talent then on the women's team to prevail there as well. So I don't know who's going to be the second best team, but you may have the odds on that as well. I don't know.
We'll look into that as we get closer, because I also want to say this, Marvelous, is you and I have been talking about these two athletes for a long time as we've been covering them through their rivalry, through their journeys in the collegiate level. But what we've seen from Angel Reese and the double-doubles that she's been putting up and the record-breaking run that she's on and the impressive game that she's been displaying, and Caitlin Clark now really coming into her own, and that awesome game she had against the Mystic, a triple-double, she is coming into her own, and you see the faces of WNBA right now developing, while the veterans like Asia Wilson are absolutely dominating, and Kelsey Plum is heading into mainstream, and everything that's going on with the Liberty. And this is a strong league right now, and like we just said, it's going to be exciting when all levels of basketball are this entertaining and this competitive. But Marvelous, any final thought? A fun way to do our second week of Olympic coverage as we get ready for basketball in Paris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to mention, too, don't forget the All-Star game in the WNBA. Clark and Reese will be teammates. So there you go. That should be interesting, too.
It's going to be awesome.
But, yeah. But, I mean, there's definitely the ratings are up, and that's great. And, the pay scale will never be equivalent, obviously. But there's been progress made, lots of progress, and it's good to see. And now we got, a full array of sports out there for us instead of just, falling asleep during baseball games.
Absolutely, and it is going to be a fun time as the Olympics take over, as the All-Star break happens, as the WNBA playoffs come around, and as a crazy offseason that is the NBA continues to happen. We'll be here to cover it all the way through. Thank you so much, Marvelous, for joining us. It is always a pleasure to talk to the Marvelous One, to the Oracle, to the fortune teller that is the Marvelous One, Dan Marver. And thank you to each and every one of you for always supporting us. Make sure you're checking us out over at Heartland Signal, the mothership, WCPT 820. We're on YouTube at The Sports Cubicle. Search us for your podcast at Sports from the Couch, The Sports Cubicle. And of course, check out the book launch, Luchadog, at luchadog.com. For the Marvelous One, Dan Marver, I'm Mike Mercado. We got a whole lot left on this edition of The Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 AM.